For this recipe, you're going to need 2 large white onions, a sharp knife, cut off the end of the onion, peel off the dry skin from the outside. And then you're going to want to cut it into sort of small cubes. Size and shape don't matter at all. Just make sure that they're small enough so that you can fry them easily. And that they're not going to take too long to cook through and become translucent and golden. Now you're going to want to take a heavy bottomed pan. You want to put the heat to medium and add 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Wait for the oil to heat up. This may take just a couple of seconds. And then we're going to add our cubed pieces of onion. To the hot oil. If they start immediately sizzling, then turn the heat down a little, as we want them to cook slowly. Now on to the tomatoes. Any type of tomatoes will do, but because this is a slow cooking meal, it doesn't need to be the best quality. So I'd say use 5 or 6 tomatoes. Again, there's no need to be precise about size or shape. Just cut them into cubes. Ready to go into the pan. Checking back on the onions. Now we're going to make sure that they're sizzling. This should have taken about maybe 10 minutes, and they should be translucent and golden. Now we're going to add the tomatoes. You don't want the tomatoes to stay raw within the mixture, so give them a bit of a mix around. And we're going to leave these until they've literally melted down into a liquid. Now it's time to cut the red pepper. Some people call these capsicums. So you start by inserting the knife at the top of the fruit and cutting around the stem, around the outer part of the fruit. Then you can easily pull the whole of the inner core out with all the seeds. Gently shake out some of the leftover seeds inside. If some seeds get in to the mixture, it doesn't make any difference. They're not hot like the chili, which is a relative. Again, there's no need to be paying too much attention to the size or the shape of how you're cutting these. Just make sure that they're nice and small. Small bite-sized pieces so that they'll cook quickly and thoroughly. You'll need 4 red peppers for this recipe. And this recipe, once cooked, will last you 3 days kept in the refrigerator. Or if you're having a dinner party and want enough for the evening, it'll serve 8 people easily. Swiftly moving on to the green pepper. You'll only need 2 of these for this recipe. Again, pulling out the inner core and discarding of any seeds. Chopping into fine pieces. Going to go back to our hot, heavy bottomed pan now. And when you look inside, like I said earlier, you want the tomatoes to be melted down and liquidy, as if they'd been pureed in there. There should be lots of juice well from the tomatoes, which should have been sucked out by the heat. Give everything a good stir around and make sure everything's nicely mixed. And then we're going to start adding the peppers to the hot pot slowly. Give the vegetables another good turn once the red and the green peppers are all inside the pot. And then we're going to add the lid, because we don't want any of the vapour, any of the water that was released from the tomatoes to leave, because it's going to all aid the cooking of the peppers. Now it's time to cut the courgettes. 6 large courgettes should be enough for this recipe. The easiest way is to cut them lengthwise first, and then you can focus on cutting them into smaller cubes. It's not too important how small you get the cubes. It all depends on your patience. The smaller the better, really. Now we're going to go back to our pot. We're going to have a look inside. You'll know when the peppers are cooked because the skin would have come away from the flesh. Give everything a really good mix now, because at this point in the cooking things can start to stick at the bottom of the pan, because it would have been cooking for an hour already. Now we're going to add our chopped courgettes, the 6 of them, to our mixture, making sure each piece gets inside the pan. And we're going to want to give this a really, really good mix around now. We want to get the courgettes into every part of the pan and get it covered in the juicy red liquor. Place the lid on again and leave probably about 20 to 30 minutes. And while we're waiting for that, it's time to cut our final ingredient, vegetable-wise, which is an aubergine. I like to use 3 medium-sized aubergines for this recipe. Like with the rest of the vegetables, size and shape isn't that important. It's all about patience. So the smaller you make the pieces, the better. Although on this day I was a little rushed, so my pieces aren't that small. Looking back into our pot, we're going to see if the courgettes are cooked, and if they've gone floppy and sort of taken on the colour of the red of the other fruits, then they're ready. Give everything a mix because it's been set for 30 minutes at the bottom of the pot and we don't want to risk burning. Now let's add the aubergine to the mixture, all 3 of them. Give everything a quick stir, just to mix everything a little bit, and then pop the lid back on and leave for a further 30 minutes. The trick with this recipe is to keep it cooking as long as possible. It's at this stage of the recipe now that we add salt and pepper to our ratatouille mixture. It's quite a big pot, so quite a bit of salt's needed. As there's no other flavour aid used in the recipe like stock, it does actually need a fair amount of seasoning. So add as much pepper as you like personally, and then give everything a good mix around. Again, keeping everything off the bottom. pop the lid back on. And now we put it in the oven and we leave it for 2 hours. After 2 hours, it's all melted in together and it's ready to be served as a side or as a very, very healthy main course, almost like a big vegetable stew. And you can top with grated cheese, whatever you fancy.